Hey, everybody, welcome to the Soulful Eclectic. I am your host, Diana Collins, and I want to welcome you to today's episode. If this is the first time you're joining us, oh my gosh, welcome. Thank you, thank you, thank you for taking the time out to sit with us and listen to what it is that we have to say. Hopefully, something that we talk about resonates with you. And please do share with family, friends, and whomever. Um, Also, if you are returning, but heck, welcome back. And thank you for taking the time out, bringing yourselves back and listening and sharing. And I love all the feedback I've been getting. Keep it coming, people, keep it coming. So I just want to, before we really get into it really quickly, because I'm like so excited to talk to our guests. So I'm trying not to forget all the things I have to talk to you guys about. So before I forget, I want to thank Divine Nubian Essentials for being one of our greatest sponsors here on the Soulful Eclectic. And if you have not tried the product, I'm honestly wondering what the heck you're waiting for, because it's like the greatest product. As you can see, we have so many people who love the product. And you know what? What are you waiting for? Also, to our other sponsor is none other than the Collins Education Resource Management. If you have anyone who is looking for help in maintaining their education in any healthcare field, Collins Education Resource Management will be that person to help you and that loved one achieve their goal in a healthcare education. And we know it's tough out there and it's a lot going on. And we want to be there to help support our students and also the community. So if there is ever an event where you want to talk about community diseases and things that we are living with in the Black and Brown community, College Education Resource Management is there and can be there to help with that information. Also, if you are looking for us and you want to reach out to be a guest on WUBI Ubiquity Radio, or if you're looking to be a guest on the Soulful Eclectic, please feel free to reach out and contact us on the soulfuleclectic.com. We would love to have you. So, with that being said, I would love to have our special guest come to our stage. It is none other than Pastor Tanequa Toala. Thank you.
Hello, hello, hello.
How
Thank
are
you
you?
so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. Oh my gosh, it's been like forever that we've been trying to get together, even to have like the simplest of conversation and to
Uh,
take for it to take you to come on my show to have this
right.
conversation. I'm okay with that.
You
I'm
are.
okay with that. Okay. So you are the pastor and the founder of the Perfectly Chosen Ministry, and I just love the name. Um,
Thank you.
you know, and you are a native New Yorker. Stop it. Where are you
I
from? New York.
I am from Queens, New York. Born and raised in Queens, New York. Spent a little of my teenage years in Brooklyn, but definitely home base. So I was, different parts of New York, but born and raised in Queens.
Queens, where? Because my mom and my brother are in Queens.
Okay, Astoria, Queens. West.
Astoria. Okay.
Yep. Where's your family in Queens?
So my mom and my brother are in Rosedale,
Oh, okay. So they're close to Long Island.
Long Island. Yep,
Yeah.
they're close to the Long Island.
Okay.
And I was actually born and raised in Brooklyn.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. My husband
Yeah.
is a Brooklyn native.
All right.
So yeah. Hey, Brooklyn.
Yes. So shout out to Brooklyn for
Shout
sure.
out to Brooklyn.
The BK is definitely it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I know it's funny because we've been hearing this whole J Lo thing in the Bronx, and I was like, oh, this woman, she's just doing the most. Love her dearly, but she's doing the most.
Oh yeah. I love me some J Lo. I love
Yes.
J Lo. I wasn't a fan of her. Is it movie documentary that she
Yes.
has?
Oh
I wasn't
gosh.
a fan. I love her, but just I didn't really care for that.
Yeah, and and I think that is what a lot of people are having issues with is
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
because it's just like, are you serious right now?
I was looking forward to it. So I was a little disappointed because I thought
Mhm.
it was just like your regular documentary. And so when I seen it was kind of like a musical. I'm not a fan of musicals. So if you like musicals, then you would love the documentary, but I'm not a musical girl. So when I seen it, I was very disappointed.
Yeah. You know what? I can't even knock you for that because you did more than I did. You watched it.
You didn't watch?
I didn't. I did clips here and there, and then I think I did like a little YouTube, TikTok because her this one segment was living rent free in my brain, literally, where she was talking about ordering a sandwich from the bodega and she was getting this orange drink, and I'm like, what the heck orange drink is she talking about?
So I
Right.
definitely didn't see that part.
Okay.
So I must have checked out before
You
then,
you
but
you probably did, but again, like I
so
said,
what was the orange drink?
nobody knows where everybody that's from Brooklyn and from the Bronx are trying to figure out what the hell this orange drink. Now, for me, the orange drink was it searched. I had to search my memory bank, okay, because one, I wasn't running the streets of Brooklyn because my
Right.
mama wasn't having that.
Right.
So I'm trying to remember the bodega. What did I get before I went into school or whatever? And I'm
Right.
like, oh, it was a Sunnydale drink in the carton.
Huh. Is
I
that
said,
what you wanted?
I don't know. I said, that's the only orange drink.
I was thinking like maybe like a sun kiss, maybe. I don't know. It wasn't my go-to. I don't
But
know.
I don't know, but it was like the cheapest orange drink that I would think of that because
Right.
you get your hero sandwich and then you get your drink, which was usually for me it was a Sunnydale orange drink or the pina colada. And
Okay.
then I would get my Wise onion and garlic potato chips because that
Yes.
was like the
Definitely.
thing to have on your sandwich. It's just
Mhm.
like you just crunch it on the
Just
sandwich and
one. Yep. Exactly. It
you
brought it
know
all together.
it was like, yes, that's love, that's home. But yeah, so it was just like, but I loved her last movie, the Mother on
It sounds
Netflix.
familiar.
It was an action movie, and
Okay.
I actually liked what she did in that.
Mm,
And so um yeah, so like I said, I don't have any like love loss against J Lo. It's
right.
just
Right. It was disappointing.
it was just disappointing. It could have
For
been
sure.
better. But yeah, enough about those people because you know they have their lives, whatever. It's about you.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So yeah, so your ministry. I know we are gonna get into how how you develop the ministry and all, but first, um, I like to always talk about how I meet my guests because I meet my guests in the most unique ways. It's
Yeah.
just like I'm, I'm like random. You should be on my podcast. It's like, oh, what's wrong with you? And if it's not me, it's my husband doing the same thing. My wife has a podcast. I'm like, honey, who are these
I love
people?
that.
So
Yes.
yeah, so it's either between he or I that my guests I acquire the guests that I have on the show. But you and I actually met because we were supposed to do a walk on the runway. We were,
That's right. That's right.
yeah.
We were at rehearsal preparing for the runway show. It was a domestic violence segment, Color Me Purple, and I
Mhm.
met you at rehearsal. And we just started talking, and we clicked. We exchanged information, and let's be clear, I exchanged information with a lot of people that day, and she and maybe two other people, the which were the hosts that had us on for the show, are the
Mhm.
only people that I connected with and stayed in contact with. So that says a lot about who you are and the things that we share that are in common, because that was what, maybe how long ago now? Like, was it 2 years? Has it been that long?
It was two
It's
years ago.
wow,
It
about
was-
2 years ago. And so we literally have kept in contact all of that time. And I'm grateful to have met you for sure.
yeah, and I am grateful to have met you because again, like you said, we connected with a lot of people that day, had a lot of conversation, and yeah, and that same out of that 2 year block outside again, the host
The host.
who brought me in, right? You're the only person that I really stayed in contact with. And I think, for me, it was really the connection. We're both nurses. I'm a nurse
Yeah.
practitioner.
Yes.
You're a registered nurse. And I think that piece really resonated with me, first and foremost, because
Yes.
we have to look after each other and take care of each other. And there's so much horizontal violence and, discourse within the healthcare already. And then we have this, bullying of nurses that still goes on.
Absolutely.
I don't care what anyone says, and you can fight to the death. And I've had this conversation with people who are nurses, and they say, "There's no violence. We love all our new nurses."
That's
That's not true.
That's not true. Not at all. It's definitely, especially when you're working with a bunch of women, more specifically when you are a woman of color
Yeah.
and you are a nurse, we experience a lot of things, from patients on occasion, but definitely from other nurses, doctors who see us and automatically think we can't be the nurse. No way. Or, it's just like you have to go in there with so much care and for yourself, of course, for your patients, but like you have to put on that shield because we are faced with so much, so we have to show up in ways that other nurses don't have to show up. You know what I mean? We have to watch what we say. We have to watch, the way our hair lays, and it's sad, but it's true because we are who we are and we look how we look. We are definitely looked at in a different regard and the nursing field. And so we experience a lot.
Yes.
Is of color for sure.
Yes. And you know what? Honestly, we're going to have another segment about that on a different day, because that is exactly the experience that, I know I've had in
Okay.
nursing. And I've elevated my career
Yes.
from being the bedside nurse to being the nurse practitioner, now the nurse educator, and now the doctor in nursing practice. So thank
Yeah.
you. So, so I definitely have seen that colorism all the way through. Not to
Mhm,
mention, I started at the very, very bottom. I
mhm,
started as like the home health aide, to
mhm.
the PCT, to
Yeah.
the multi-skilled PCT where I was drawing blood, doing
Yeah.
EKGs, to
Yeah.
the medical assistant,
Yeah.
to registered nurse. I skipped the LPN part. I went right,
Yeah. You
but
worked your way up. You got
I
there.
worked my
Hard
way
work.
up.
It's not easy.
No, and it's not easy. And to see that colorism as you're going through and see it not change, being the only
Right.
Black nurse on the unit. I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many things that, I mean, that's like I said, that's a segment all in itself. And
Yeah.
I don't want us to take up our time because
Mm.
talking about that, because that again,
It's a
we,
lot.
we, it's a, oh my gosh, it's a lot to unpack, between the two of us. So definitely, all right, everybody, we will be back on that one.
Yes.
We're going to table that conversation for now because we got
Yes.
other stuff to talk about.
Yes.
But yeah, so that runway show, it didn't happen as planned, but it still happened, and I still ended up walking for it. Um,
Yeah.
and and honestly, I wasn't feeling my best when I walked on it, for it, but I did it, and I held my head up high, and it was just me, just not feeling it that day. And I
Right.
was so sad not to see you because I was looking forward to seeing
I
you.
know. It was so much confusion about dates and places. And by the time it was like really nailed in, I wasn't prepared. I didn't have my purple, I didn't anything. So they actually invited me back to it this year, and I was able to walk. And it was just an amazing experience. So definitely glad.
Oh, I'm glad. I didn't get an invite back. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't walk well. I don't know. I didn't get an invite back, but it is okay. Um, no love lost. I still love my ladies. It's all
Absolutely.
right. I really did. I do have fun doing those things and
Yeah,
meeting the beautiful women that come out of it, and hearing our stories of triumph um,
absolutely.
through it all. So you are now a new wife
I
again.
I am. I wife. I recently married in February.
Yay.
So new wife, but I actually have known my husband since I was 12, 13 years old. We actually met in middle school in Brooklyn. And so we've definitely grown up with each other. And although, we have not been together all of those years, we have always remained friends. And
Mhm.
so full circle, we reconnected and we started dating and we got married. It's just one of those things where my husband has taught me, just for being in his presence and knowing who he is. First of all, he's always been amazing. Let's start there. um, but just the fact that if this is for men and women, if somebody wants to, they will. We always heard that. And so just his example just showed me how true that is. You could be with someone 6 years, 10 years, 20 years. If they don't want to, they won't. And so here it was, we reconnected, and it wasn't one of those things where we stayed with each other for years and let's do it. It was, you're my wife. I loved you. I always loved you. And this is what I want. So he wanted to, he did, and here we are. So yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's kind of like how my husband did it too, to be honest.
Yeah.
I wasn't intending to get married, like, and we'll talk about the domestic violence piece of it, but
Yeah.
I wasn't in a space to get married. I wasn't thinking about getting married. I was just
Mhm.
broken up from a supposed engagement. And now, here I am trying to get my life together, adult kids in college, that kind of thing.
Right.
And then all of a sudden start dating this guy who was my student at
Wow.
one point. Um, Not when we were dating people. I have
Right,
some
right,
ethics.
right.
I have ethics upon me here, some moral standing. I did not date my husband while he was still my student. That did not happen. Let me just put that out
Right.
there.
Okay.
Um, People, I have scruples. Thank you very much. But anyways, but yes, and then and similar, he was like, "No, this is it. I know what I want. I'm not doing this." We
That's right.
And then we dated for like a month. He proposed within that first couple of weeks, and we were married within
That
3 to 6 months. So
yeah, that is
yeah,
amazing.
and here we are 8 years later.
8 years later. Okay, I love that.
So
Love-
it is possible. But
Yes.
I one question: what school did you guys go to that you?
We went to 293 Nathan Hill, um,
Okay,
Brooklyn Heights, downtown Brooklyn.
okay, all right. I no, no. I always like to ask. I did not attend public school. My mom had us in private school. We went
Okay.
yeah. So we went to Our Lady of Lourdes off of Aberdeen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
because we
Nice.
lived on Bushwick Ave. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, we lived in Gowanus Projects, downtown Brooklyn.
Mhm.
Baltic Street is where I lived, and he was like, his building was diagonal from mine. Like I said, I was born and raised in Queens, so when we moved there, he was like one of the first people I met,
No,
and
that's good.
I was like, yeah.
That is so sweet. Oh my God, I love hearing those love stories. It's amazing because it just doesn't happen very often, especially when we have such a tragic beginning.
Ab- Absolutely.
Um, and you speaking on domestic violence and
Mhm.
being a survivor
Yes.
and being triumphant over it is
Mhm.
what I like to say because you know we
Absolutely.
didn't just survive.
That's right.
you
That's right.
know so that speaks volumes to you and your ministry. So when
Mhm.
did you become a pastor and begin your ministry of Perfectly Chosen Ministries?
So I was called to pastor at the age of 12. I remember literally being in Brooklyn. I had a red bunk bed. I remember sitting on my bottom bunk and just hearing, you're going to be a pastor. At that time, it was kind of freaky because I'm like, I don't know what this means. I don't know any of that. So life still went on, and like full transparency. Um, and we'll get to that part, but there's a reason why I named my ministry Perfectly Chosen Ministries. So, here I was at 12. I heard that I'm, you're going to pastor. And at this time, I was in a gang. Um, in Brooklyn, in Queens, I had like my comfort. I was pretty much surrounded by my family. My dad and my mom, although they were going through certain things, they were still married. So he was more present. And then, so when I moved to Brooklyn, it was more so just me and my mom. Occasionally, my uncles came by, but they were all grown ups. So it's not like, they were like siblings, with the exception to one who he and I are like close in age. And so, I had these men, like literally grown men, who would try like having sex with me, and here I was, this young girl, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do? Like, I can't call my dad, I don't want to tell my mom we just moved here. I don't want to freak her out. And so I got involved with gangs, and, I got affiliated very young. But they became my family. They became my brothers. They became who protected me. And at that time, that I felt like, that's what I needed. So I say that to say that even though I was called at 12 to pastor, I still, even not knowing what that meant, lived my life. With the gangs, a few years later, I became a teen parent. I had my first child at 16. I met their father, who he and I, so once we left Brooklyn, my mom moved to Long Island, and that met my children's father. We were both young, teenagers. He's about 2 years older than I am. He was the cool guy in the neighborhood that all the girls liked. And, at that time, I had this thing for that guy. And so he and I, we connected, we started dating, and he became abusive. And so, here I am, this girl who grew up around all these guys, all this protection. And now I'm in this relationship with this person who says he loves me, and he's abusive. And so many things, at that moment, I would say for me growing up in an abusive home, because my dad was also abusive to my mom, it was one of those things like, this is normal, like I watched my mom go through it. She stayed with dad, and so it was one of those things that I kept, I kept myself in because it was what I was familiar to, even though I knew it wasn't right. And it's weird because a lot of times, and I've spoken to other women who have been abused, and we all share this thing where even though he was abusive to me, I didn't want to say anything. For one, I was embarrassed. I'm like, not me, you know what I mean? So I didn't want to say anything for that reason. And then also, even though he was doing these things to me, I didn't want anybody to hurt him. I knew as soon as I said something, it was going to be a problem. Like my family was going to show up, and it was going to be something. So I'm like, I don't want anything to happen to him. I don't want my family getting in trouble. So I kept it a secret for a while. And then ultimately I did end up telling my dad, and it was a big thing. Fast forward, I stayed with him. Like I said, it was something that was normal to me from my childhood. He and I had 4 children together. And it was after I had our last child, my son, where I was just like, I just can't do it anymore. Like it's going to be a point where it's going to be me or him. It really came down to that. And so I was able to, I relocated. I actually went into a domestic violence shelter and, got out of that situation. So 12, called to pastor, still went through the gang, still became a teen mom at 16 and 19. I had 4 children by the age of 22. So it all happened fast, and it all happened when I was young. And I share these things to say that even after all of that I went through, I was supposed to not really like God, it was God's intentions, but he allowed those things to happen because it was going to be who I am today. Like those are the things that was going to be my testimony and help me help others. So in 2012, so I had 4 children with the ex, and then a few years, I want to maybe 6, 7 years later, I met my youngest child's father. we became pregnant, and I lost that baby prematurely. I had her about 4 months.
Mm.
And so I was just so angry with God. Like, I don't do drugs. I don't do any of that stuff. Why would you do this to me? And so it took 8 years after that before I heard from God saying that basically she was never supposed to be here. She came from me. The whole reason for her birth was to bring me to God. So that's when I accepted my calling as pastor, was in 2013 when I
Mhm.
accepted the call to pastor, which I also had my baby, another baby, a year
Oh.
later. I came home with her the same day that I lost the other baby. So it all worked out the way it was supposed to. I accepted my call to pastor in 2013, and I started my ministry, Perfectly Chosen Ministries, in 2021.
Mhm.
And so Perfectly Chosen is basically that, God chose you. He chose you blemish free in everything that you've gone through, even if it doesn't seem like you're worthy enough. You are. You were perfectly chosen for everything that you have been assigned to, every person that's been assigned to you. You are perfectly chosen for a time such as this. So teen mom, pregnant, the abuse, everything is what led
Mhm.
me to Perfectly Chosen Ministries. And so when most people see me when I'm out and about in my regular life, I'm just like the regular big sister, auntie, I have my Jordans, or, I'm my tattoos, like I'm personable. So people don't look at me and say pastor, and that's what I love, because now I'm able to talk to the youth and teens. And I think representation is so important. So now if they see someone that does look like me in front of them, who's, maybe growing up, they were told, oh, you can't be a Christian if you have tattoos. You can't be a Christian if your skirt isn't past your knees. I'm here to set all of that apart. Like, that's not true. I have pastor friends that won't go to certain places. They just won't. Me, I'm like Jesus in that way, where I'm going to sit amongst the sinners. I'm going to sit amongst, the people that
Mhm.
other people won't attach themselves to, because I don't feel like we all need to be in the church. We are the church. And so that's why Perfectly Chosen Ministries, I that's why I do things like the podcast, and I go to different churches to speak, and I go to different events, because I want to meet people right where they are. You're not going to meet people like that every day at a regular church service, because a lot of times people don't feel like they belong. They feel like they have to get right to go to church, when you don't get right to go to church. You go to church to get right.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's why I established Perfectly Chosen Ministries, because I want people to know you are perfectly chosen just as you are, no matter what you've experienced or gone through, that your story is going to be what connects you with the person that's waiting for you to come up out of it.
I love that. And I'm sitting here nodding, like, oh my gosh, feeling like a bobblehead, because everything you said, I mean, so much of what you said resonates with me.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
though I never joined a gang, I'm sure left me to my own vices. I had my own stuff that I was doing that I probably shouldn't have been doing. You know,
Right.
sorry, mom, if you listen to this podcast, but um, which
Yeah,
I'm sure she probably had an idea, right? Because
right,
mothers
right.
know what their
Absolutely.
daughters are doing
That's
for the
right.
most part.
Yeah, they do.
Um, but running to catch a train to the Bronx to hang out with my then kid's father, kind of things. And um honestly, I never really skipped school like most people did. I can literally count on one hand and won't even make it to the five fingers of how many times that I have honestly skipped school, because I did like education, because I always knew education was going to be my way out.
Yes.
um
Yes. Glory to
of everything. So yes. And you talked about being in the church and coming as you are. That speaks volumes, because I left the church many years ago when the kids were smaller, um, just because it was just not my thing. I
right.
grew up in the church, every Sunday I was in the choir, I was an usher, I did the
Yeah.
thing, I know all the mannerisms. I can, if I was to go into a black church today, right, right, like, all right, come on over, the whole bit.
Right.
I was there, and probably could fall right back into it just as easy because it's just routine, right?
Right.
Um, and you speak about having tattoos and being in the church. I'm sure to this day, my mom would look at my arms and probably still cringe, like,
Yeah.
"Why'd you have to do
My
that?"
grandmother too. He's like, that's not your body. You're rinsing it, and you're going to give it back to God with all these holes and things. This is what she said before she passed, and I'm like, oh, Grandma.
It's just one of those things. And I remember my kids, for a long time, like my first tattoo, I didn't get until I was like 36.
Wow.
That's how much it was
Look
just
at
like
that.
ingrained in my head. Don't do that.
That's
It's
right.
just so at 36, I was like, I'm doing
I'm
this.
getting a tattoo.
And I was in the army, okay, mind you.
Wow.
And while everybody else was at the tattoo place on graduation, I was in a hotel watching HBO. But it just sat with me, and I was like, yeah. And and it's funny how Christians will say, come as you are, but that a lot of them really don't mean that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad, but what I've learned in just this past year in 23, it opened my eyes up to so much. So although I was brought up as a Baptist, my grandmother had me in church maybe twice on a Sunday sometimes,
Mhm.
So growing up, I've always been in church, but I never really had the relationship with God, having a church and all that for myself
Mhm.
until I became an adult. But this past year, since my ministry, and now I'm being asked to go to different churches and I'm preaching and things like that, it opened my eyes up to so much, even from a pastor's perspective. So it's not just like people, just coming into the church and feeling that. I feel it as a pastor. I see the clicks, I hear the conversations. So it is a real thing. And so I think a lot of that has to do with, it goes back into time. It goes back to colorism. It goes back to, we've always been put against each other. And that same nasty thing is true for church. And it's sad and it's unfortunate. And I know it's not everyone, but it is a real thing that's happening. And so I experienced it. And it's one of those things, like, if I didn't have the relationship with God that I do, and I know that it's not him, that it's people, then I would definitely be the type of person, like, I'm not going back.
Mhm.
But it's also one of those things where we have to give grace to say, okay, there is Pastor Tanequa, but then there is also Tanequa. We all have our flesh past our titles. And so when
Mhm.
we're able to give people that grace and say, you know what, so and so sister or whoever offended me, we have to give grace knowing that they're still themselves. They still have flesh things that they have to figure out. We pray for them, we move on. And what I'm learning to do, though, is speak to people and hold people accountable. I think it's important, especially
Mhm.
when you have seats as pastors and things like that, because someone else coming in who may be a baby in Christ, and maybe it's their first time visiting church, they may not have this same revelation, and they're definitely not going to say these things to the pastors and ministers. They're just going to simply say, "This is why I don't come to church. This is why right here," and they're just not going to come back. So it is imperative for people like myself to hold these pastors accountable, hold these ministers accountable. You can do that in love. You don't have to cuss anybody out, but you could pull them to the
Yeah.
side and say, hey, what you did, that wasn't right. And I think if more people did that, then things where you would definitely start seeing a change. I think also if we held the standards that they had when our parents and grandparents went to church, things would be different. Like, growing up, you couldn't just go to the pulpit. Like, that was holy area.
Mhm.
Now anybody can go up there. Now you got the tight fitting outfits while they sing and so it's no more respect in that realm,
Mhm.
I think. So because of that too, we are allowing different things to happen. So I just think, a lot of churches and pastors need to get back to the basics in that perspective, hold each other accountable, start having respect, for those areas, and having real conversation, like what you're doing, this platform, and having real conversation, not being afraid to touch on the topics that's real life.
Mhm.
as an example, I'm just gonna say for marriage, it's pushed to get married, but I say it's better to be single. Yes, God wants you to be married,
Mm-hmm.
but it says he who finds a wife finds a good thing. So that means you have to already be a wife when he finds you. That means when he's pursuing you, he has to already be a husband pursuing his wife. So these are the things they're not teaching in church. They're just saying, oh, get married, get married. Yes, it is true. You should get married, but are you ready to get married? That's
That
the big
part.
question. Are you ready to get married? A lot of times when people get married, it's for the wrong reasons. When you're in church, when you are a Christian, because number one, you feel like you have to. Number two, okay, I can't have sex. I want to have sex. So let me get married. So
Mm-hmm.
again, it's these things that is not being discussed, and you're pushing people into marriage, and then it's like, oh, they got a divorce. Well, because it says, let who God brings together, let no man tear apart. A lot of these marriages aren't being put together by God; they're being put together by other people's perceptions and the things that we
Mm-hmm.
want to do that we can't do outside of marriages. So these are the real conversations that I feel like people need to start having. These are conversations that I myself am going to start having within my ministry when I start doing my lives and things like that. The hard topics, the stuff that
Mm-hmm.
people are afraid to talk about, but it's imperative that we have these conversations for sure.
No, and I appreciate that, and I love that we're able to have those conversations because, again, like you said, it's the
Mhm.
reason why most people don't walk into a church building.
That's right. That's right.
Um, and not saying that I don't have spirituality, I don't believe in God or anything like that. That's not true. God is the ruler of my life. He
Mhm.
is who I am. Um, but does that mean I have to define myself by and my love for God by walking into a building? Absolutely not.
Absolutely. Right.
Absolutely
Absolutely.
not.
Right.
And it looks different for me than it does for the next person. And who am I to say that you're not Christian because you don't do X, Y, and Z?
Absolutely.
And that part is where we're losing people.
Yes. Yes. That is so true. I definitely, for me, I feel like everyone should have a shepherd. I feel like everyone should have a pastor. That's your teacher. That's the person that you're supposed to lead by example and commune. I don't believe that you have to be in church to be a Christian. Um, um, I think that's something that, again, people are just putting out there.
Mhm.
It's these clicks, you know what I mean? Like if you don't do this, then you're not that. I don't
Mhm.
believe that. I do believe like it's biblical. Like I try to use as many Bible references because it's not just my opinion, but like he who is without sin throw the first stone. We all have sin. Our sin may look different, but none of us is holier than the other. And like I said, this past year, I experienced that firsthand. Just a quick testimony. I was having trouble last year within my personal life. And there was a woman who I met when I first moved to Arizona in 2020, and very nice, like, love her soul. But her Instagram account was like, the name was out of here. Like I was just like, ooh, I was like, I can't follow her. I don't want to mess up my algorithm. I can't follow her because I don't want people seeing that I'm following this name. And so here it is, me worrying about what everyone else is going to say, me worrying about the wrong things. And guess what? When I was going through what I was going through, she's the one who was right there. It wasn't my sisters in the church. It wasn't other pastors. I was left on red from other pastors.
Mm.
And it's not to say that that's everybody's character, but it is to say that you don't judge people by something as small as an Instagram name, because God will use anybody to help you. God will use anybody to give you a message. And so that was just like God's way of showing me, like, look at that. And she was the one who was there, not the people that I expected. So obviously that changed my perspective 100%. And so now I don't operate like that. And I know that there are people who do operate like that. And I just want to, share that testimony to let people know that your help may not come from who you think is going to come from, or it's not going to look like what you think it's supposed to look like. And
Mhm.
that's what makes us all beautiful. Like when I go to conferences and I see shoulder to shoulder, white, black, Asian, that just goes to show that, because that's not what God sees. God doesn't see our colors. God doesn't see that. This is what heaven is going to look like. When I'm shoulder to shoulder with all these different people, I'm like, wow, this is what heaven is going to look like. And so I just, just want to encourage people to don't stop your blessing because it doesn't look like what you think it's supposed to look like. Even down to my husband. In my mind, my husband was going to be 6 foot something. He was going to be this black man, and the list and the list and the list. And my husband isn't. Like, so you just never know. This list that you're setting for yourself might be stopping you from receiving what it is that God is trying to give to you, because you got this list. And that goes for everything. That goes for your relationships. That goes for your church,
Yes.
your pastors. Let's
Mhm.
get rid of the list and just do and be happy with people. Not the list of your criteria, but how people make you feel, how people are showing up for you. Those
Mhm.
things matter than your list.
You know what? And that's true. And it's funny you say the list. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, damn, did I have a list?
I
And I,
gotta look like it's girl.
you, I honestly did not. I think I only had a list, and this is awful. And I had this conversation, I think, with another guest. We were talking, and I said that I think the only time I had a list was when I was younger.
Yeah.
Um, to be honest, because honestly, I didn't think I would live to the ripe
Wow.
age of 48 that I am today.
Wow.
So in that alone, um, is a blessing and a testimony to
And-
itself, because I didn't. I tried to end my life a couple of times,
Wow.
as a young kid, um, and unbeknownst to me, I didn't know God had a plan. It wasn't something that I thought about at that time. It's like, no. But as I grew older and started living my life, it's like, yeah, you were meant for something else.
That's right.
Whatever it is, we don't know. Just keep moving. Just keep
Keep
going.
going.
Just keep
That's
going.
right.
Keep going. Um, so it's just like you sit here and say a list. I'm like, yeah, the only list I had was honestly, and this will sound horrible, and I and it's only because of the generation and how we grew up that it will come out as bad as it is, but I just did not want to date a black man.
Wow.
I did not want to have children with a black man because I was so broken
Yes.
within myself
Yes.
that I didn't like what was associated with being as dark as I am.
Wow.
So my goal was if I was going to have children, it was going to be with someone other than who was black because I didn't want them to have hair like mine. I
Wow.
didn't want them to have skin like mine.
Wow.
I wanted them to have that advantage. So when you talk about lists, that is literally the only
That's
list
yes.
that came in my head.
Yeah, I can definitely understand why you would think that, especially if you were receiving that type of thing growing up. Um, I personally I never experienced that, but my children have. So my
Mhm,
oldest daughter is 22 and she's very fair skinned. And then my youngest is 11 and she's darker tone. She's about your complexion. And so I had to experience it through them. So with my
mhm,
oldest, and what's so crazy is a lot of times people think it's people of outside of black that does
mm-mm,
these things. And for both of my children, it was black people. It
mhm.
wasn't outside, of us.
No,
And so my oldest, she got teased from the black children, and she was because she's white, you're not black, and she would come
mhm,
home and cry and, mommy, they keep calling me white girl, and so people don't even realize even lighter people she
mhm,
experienced it, and so I had to build her up like, no, you're not, you're not these things, and kept telling her how beautiful she was. And then from my 11-year-old, it's the opposite. It started for her in pre-K. She got off the bus crying. And another kid, and it goes back to home because here they are in pre-K, said to her, I'm caramel and you're black. And when you get out the bathtub, you're ashy. And she's saying this in like her sweetest voice, and she's crying. And from that moment, I said, okay, I see what this is. So I just built her up, built her up. My parents are brown skin, and her dad is a darker complexion. So we always built up. But now, honey, them deep dimples, you can't tell her anything.
She is just a cutie pie.
Tell her like, you're beautiful. I know. But it takes having to keep saying these things, because people will quickly show you and tell you that you look different from them, and they will remind you of these things. So I can definitely relate in that way, because I had to experience it with my children. And so I can only imagine like the things that they thought of that maybe they haven't shared with me. So, I definitely could understand why that would be your list for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And then, same with my kids. In here, I thought by having that list, and my kids are half Puerto Rican for that
Hmm.
reason, right? Um, and so even having that list and
Hmm.
them going to school, and even their hair is a little bit better, they're got the caramel skin, one's lighter than the other one, they still had that same
Same,
issue.
same.
And you still have to still validate them at home, but you know we could do so much as parents to validate them.
Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
just like, okay, no, you're absolutely gorgeous, you're this person, you're smart, you're this. And yeah, I'm blessed to have them be the
Amen.
children that they are, and
Yeah,
they are strong in their character. And it's kids are horrible to
yeah,
each other,
yeah,
and
they
we have to do better as parents.
absolutely,
Because,
absolutely.
like you said, at kindergarten, no kindergarten child should be.
That
You should
should
be talking about colors on a piece of paper.
Why are we talking about this? Like, right, that shouldn't have even been a conversation.
And
But
what
it
do you know about being ashy?
was right. Yeah, it shouldn't even be a conversation. And I mean, here recently, I want to say maybe beginning of the year, she was called a monkey. And that was like, really? Like I'm having to have these conversations with her. And because she's always had to have this tough skin, she got comebacks. Like she's gonna say something back. She's gonna be like, so but it's just a point. And so I had to go through all of that, and talking to the school and making sure the child who said it was being educated. And it's just sad. It's unfortunate, but these are the things, like you said, it starts at home. It starts with parents having these conversations with their children. Unfortunately, I'm realizing that I'm blessed to have had my mom and still have my mom, because she, even growing up in the projects, it's just I have a certain level of respect. Like even people, like when I speak to people, they go, "You're not from New York. There's no way you're from New York.
Me
You
too.
not, no way. It's no way. You're always good morning, good afternoon." But it's not New York. It's how you're
You
raised.
were raised.
And that's
Thank
just how I was raised. My mom said, if you are the first to enter the room, you need to
you.
speak. You
Mm-hmm.
see an adult, you need to speak. Somebody gives you something, you need to say thank
Thank
you,
you.
no thank you. So this is just mannerism that I was taught. And so I'm realizing here this year, after meeting a lot of different parents and having mentorships and stuff, we are not the same. I thought this was normal, like
Mm,
having common courtesy and mannerism. I thought
I
this
thought so
was
too.
normal. And I've met some parents, and I'm just like, so this is not
Wow.
this is not common, I should say. And so I
Right.
literally one day called my mom and was like, "Thank you, mom. Thank you."
Yeah.
And I did. You hear stories, but I never had to experience it. And so
Mm.
I've had to experience some parents, and I'm just like, "Did you just say that? Did you just call this other kid fat? Did you just say that? Oh,
Mhm.
your child is fat. You just got to teach them." Did you just say that? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I've experienced some things, and that's another reason why I have the mentorship program
Mhm.
through Perfectly Chosen Ministries, because I remember even growing up not always having the best influences and best role models. Yes, I had my mom, but for me, my mom wasn't somebody that I felt safe talking to about certain things. And not
Mhm.
because she wouldn't be there, but because my mom was very, like how you said, my mom was an A student. Like she was totally different from me. So I felt like, oh my gosh, if I tell my mom, she's going to be disappointed, because she's the type of person, like, if I failed a math test, how could you fail this test? How could you do that? Like that was
Mhm.
my mom growing up. So I didn't have that person where I felt safe, where I can go and talk to. So that's why I started the mentorship program, because I feel like it's the perfect way to give your child that safe place that they may not feel like they can come to you about certain things, but also it gives you a chance to, you get to choose your mentor. So that helps. Whereas me, I went to gangs, I went to other resources. So now I'm having all these influences, but it may not be the best influences.
Mhm.
Whereas with mentorship programs, you are choosing who is going to be the influence to your child and be that safe place for your child. And so that's why I love the fact that, I can offer that through my ministry, the mentorship program. I also have free advocacy program for women facing domestic violence, whether they're currently facing it or they have faced it, and where, like, not everybody, like we just said, are good with words, can communicate. So we have that service where, hey, if you need somebody to go with you to court, or you just need somebody to go with you for an appointment, that's free. I have a mentorship. The mentorship program is free for youth 12 through 20. And they sign up through my website. I do have mentorship for adults as well, low cost for women. I had some men, but I don't really have any men mentors right now. So I'm just basically just where I'm focused on women. And again, for anyone facing domestic violence, I do offer mentorship program for free. Again, because, being a survivor,
Mhm.
which I call everybody survivors. I just dislike the terminology with
Yeah.
so much. So even if somebody is facing it, I still consider you a survivor. And so I didn't have those resources. So I definitely offer all my services free of charge for anybody who's faced it or is facing it. Because to have someone to talk to is one thing, but having someone who talked to who experienced it is something totally
Something totally
different.
different.
Totally different. Hmm.
No, and I love that, and I love that the ministry. And I'm just going to put the ministry up really quickly, your website, because yes, I think everyone just needs to see what it is and
Yeah,
experience it, because it's just it warms my heart, and it's one of those things that I think about. It's like, I wish there was something like that, and I knew of something like that,
yeah,
for me when I was going through it, because at the time I did not understand or know that I was actually going through, or in a domestic violence situation, if you can even, because that's just how, again, you see it, you know, it's like one of those things, right? You never know it's going to be you.
that's right.
um and again, it wasn't until that it's going to be you or me situation
Mhm.
that I had to really look at it. And I'm just clicking through so people could
Oh,
see as we're going through,
absolutely.
um, as we're talking. But um, and I love this because it's just, again, I wish that there was something like this for me when I was going through it, because again, I didn't know what I was going through was actually a domestic violence
Mhm.
situation, because it was something that was, again, normal at that time,
That's
right?
right.
It was just something that we knew. Everybody in the neighborhood, mom,
Mhm.
dad, somebody was getting beat for whatever the reason, or it was the norm back
That's
then.
that's right.
And it wasn't until it was one of those you or me situations where I say, I can't do this.
Way,
I
right?
can't.
Mhm.
Um, and then I had, my children, and I tell them this as often as I can, that they're the reason that I'm here today.
Yeah. I just had this conversation. April 1st was my oldest daughter's birthday. Is 26. She turned
Oh.
2. And she and I have been having some friction. And, just basically, I had her at 16. So what she experienced from me as a mom compared to what my 11-year-old gets from me as a mom are two different people. She had to go through a lot with me at
Mhm.
16, whereas here at 38, I've arrived. So now I'm here, and my 11-year-old gets all this, whereas my 16-year-old, I mean, my 22-year-old didn't, from a 16-year-old mom. And so she had the opportunity to speak with me about just certain things. And she's like, Mom, even when we were in the shelter, she was like, those were like the happier days because it didn't feel like a shelter. Like we made the best out of everything. And so I had to have that real conversation with her. And I just, I had to share with her, I'm here right now because of you and your siblings. Like I had moments where I just didn't want to be here. Like it was just
Mhm.
like, why? Like it was no point. And so
Right.
obviously now, I know that there is a point, but my children are the main reasons why I was just like, I can't leave them,
Mm-mm.
and so I literally, so when I hear you say that, I just shared that with her, like, you guys are the reason why I stuck it out. You are the reason why I am here right now, because you were the first things that came to my mind on those
Mm-hmm.
days when I just didn't want to anymore. um and I know you said like it was normal, when somebody's being abused and this and that. I mean, even down to rape and, things
Mm-hmm.
going on in families. And that's why I want to change that narrative. The narrative of what goes on in this house stays in this house.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
that I grew up hearing so much.
We all did.
Yes. So when dad was abusing my mom, when he pulled the pistol out and tried to shoot her, and, all the things that I experienced from a little girl, whatever goes on in this house stays in this house. That gets engraved in you. So now you're dealing with so much and you have no outlet because you're being told that's a no no. That's the
Mm-hmm.
narrative I had to change within my home. Yes, obviously there are certain things that are personal, that are private, but anything that is causing any type of harm should never be a don't say anything. And your children should never be afraid to say anything under
Mm-hmm.
those circumstances, because now you just created a space where if they are molested, if somebody's doing something, they're not going to tell you because you put so much emphasis on that. And that's literally what has happened to me, growing up. I've
Mm-hmm.
heard it so much that I endured so much. So these are the things that I feel like now in my generation, even like my children's generation, we have to change that narrative. It's no, what goes on in this house stays in this house. If it's not safe, it's okay to say. You feel safe with somebody to say it, because it can literally mean life or death.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times, if you don't feel like you can say anything, that's when you start thinking about suicide, because it's like, I don't want to deal with this. I can't say anything to anybody. I don't feel like I'm
Mm-hmm.
equipped enough to handle it. And now you have all these other issues. So I just, want to encourage anybody, joining that. Let's start changing the narrative on the things that we were taught growing up. And it's no fault to our parents, because literally
No.
they were just following things that their parents did. And then it
Yeah.
just going on and on and on. So it's up for us to change those narratives. And that right there, that's a big one for me.
No, definitely, definitely. And the other thing is to be open with communication, especially with our children.
Yep.
That was one of the big things for me when I had my kids, because I mean, like you had your daughter at 16. My mother had me at 15,
Wow.
So it was no communication. She was doing what she needed to do to survive. So, yes, I
Mhm.
had to have that conversation with myself.
Mhm.
And are you going to be mad at your mother because she didn't give you the love and support that you needed back then? She's
Right.
showing up now.
Right. That's right.
And every chance she has, she's been showing up
Mhm.
because she has grown. So now you need to do that. So that's what I try to show my children as well. And I have that communication with them. Unfortunately, my oldest and I are not at the best of communication right now, but it's in God's hands, and she'll get to the point where she understands where I was coming from,
Yeah.
and as she was growing up as well. Because I mean, I
Yeah.
was not that much older. I was 20, you
Wow.
know,
Yeah.
you
Right.
know, and and then before that, I had 2 abortions before that because I didn't want to have that cycle repeated at 15 and 16.
That's right.
You know, I didn't want that. And I knew enough at that age that that's not what I wanted.
Right.
So I did what was best for me.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm not saying that that's for everybody. That's not that's not what I'm saying. That
Right.
was what was best for me at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, being 20 kids and, domestic violence, you have all these things that you're grappling with and you're growing with. So communication was really big, um, with me and my girls, and sometimes communication way too much, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
That's me with my 19-year-old. I have drilled into them so much. You can talk to me about anything. You can talk to me that sometimes she's saying stuff and I'm like, I'm trying not to react. I'm like, I told her she could talk to me about anything, but my God, she's talking to me about everything.
It's like
So
just
I'm like, okay.
yeah. So it's really funny because they'll premise it with, I know you don't really want to hear this, but I'm gonna tell you
Exactly.
anyway. I'm like, oh. So then you gotta brace yourself for what you're about to hear. It's like,
Gosh,
oh,
here we go. All
it's
right.
gonna be a doozy. Let me put the poker face on. Okay, I'm here.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, and then they go in. Are you okay, Mom? Yeah, I'm
Right.
good.
I'm good.
I'm
Um,
good. Just
until you
keep
leave out.
continue.
Right.
Oh,
Yes.
what am I gonna say? No, stop
Right.
talking. Too
Don't tell
much.
me.
Don't tell me anything. No, just go. If you're comfortable sharing that with me, I'm in a blessed position because not many people are
That's
comfortable
so true.
talking to their parents in that manner. So if
Yep.
this is what's on your mind and you want to share it and you're choosing me, I'm honored that you're choosing me to have that conversation with me. So
Amen.
let's
Absolutely.
let's let's do it because there's going to be a time that I'm never going to hear that conversation again.
Right. That's so true.
And I think I'm I'm going to say I'm a very intuitive soul
Mm.
because I don't know how I come up with these things that I've come up with in my years and things like that, because that was something that always was within me. It was always a voice that said, one day you're not going to hear this, so
Mm.
just let them say, let them talk, let them do, because you're not going to be able, one day, right?
Right. Right.
When they were babies, I have this construction notebook, the old construction notebook,
Yes.
right? And I remember starting this book when my oldest was a couple of months old.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just something, I started letters to my daughter.
Wow.
And I went back and read, like, it was like 1996,
Wow.
1995. I was like, oh my gosh,
Wow.
what was I thinking to even come up with this concept?
I love that
I
though.
think I heard it on Oprah or something,
I
like just in a
talk
drive
about
by or something.
my mentees. Like, I love that idea.
Right. And so every now and again, I'll pull the notebook out and either read something that I have written or write a letter to them at different milestones or whatever is driving me at that point. So the book is split in half. So one part is for the oldest, one part is for the youngest, and
Mm,
then
love
sprinkled in there are like joint letters to the both of them. But um, it's just one of those things that it just stuck with me, and I keep it with me everywhere I go. And like I said, different milestones when they turn 15, when they turn 21, when they turn 25, and it was just letters, just whatever it was on my spirit. It could be as long or as short, whatever. And it was just something that I've always done. And I
it.
just don't know where it came from. It was one of those things, like it was in my spirit, so I did it.
Yes, I'm gonna do that. I love that idea.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, and they've seen it, and they're like, "Oh, it's called the mommy's book." Because I think we call it mommy's book, mommy's book.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, so I just go back, and it kind of refreshes my memory on where I've been, because it's the driving force of where I am and where I'm going.
Amen. I love that.
And sometimes we just need that reminder.
Mm-hmm.
And we need that reminder to be kind to ourselves and forgiving to ourselves that we may have not had the best of moments, you
Mm-hmm.
know. As I said, my oldest daughter is not really talking to me at this point. Um, and it was really because of not one of my greatest moments as a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And you apologize and you do your due diligence, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not until that other person feels like they're ready.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're ready doesn't mean they're ready,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that's okay.
Yes.
And I say that and I share it with everyone because it is okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for us to make somebody be ready. We've had those experiences in life as children where you
Right.
know it's you're fine, you'll be all right. Just shake it off, move on.
Yep. Yep.
And sometimes it's not up to us to decide.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to us to be there when and be accepting
That's
when
right.
it's when we if we are ready too, right? Because we have our own set of boundaries
Right.
and things, right?
Yep.
And it's not to say that you can't have boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
As a parent, as a mom, as a child, we all have our set of boundaries, and it is what it is. Um, but it's our testimony to who we are.
And yeah.
Right? And I think that's we have to have that as a reminder sometimes. So, yeah. How do you keep presenting your authentic self as you navigate all these different places? Because I talk about the mask and wearing a mask all the time in different places that we have to be in. And we show up, we know we have a mask for nursing. We talked about that mask and we'll talk again.
Yeah, for me, it's a lot of things. So first of all, being a pastor is not something that I woke up and said, "This is what I'm going to do." It's definitely something that God said I was going to do. I was called to do this, and I accepted the call to do it. A lot of times now, now I know this is what it is. It's no throwing in the towel, but there were times where I was like, "Here you go. I'm not doing this. I don't know why you chose me to do this, but I'm not doing this. You can have it, get somebody else to do it, and I'm done." And you'll meet anybody that's in ministry that has been called to ministry, because a lot of times, especially in 2024, not everybody was called to do it. Some people just want to do it because they want to be Sarah Jakes Rob. Let's be
Right.
honest. But if you are called to pastor, you're called to do any type of ministry. There was a point where you said, "This is not for me. Here you go, take it back." And I've had my moments. And I remember the it was second and last time that I had the moment. I was like, "I'm not doing this, get somebody else to do it. I'm going to delete all my socials." Believe it or not, I'm not even the type of person, I don't like social media. Like, if it were up to me, I wouldn't have any social media. I would just be here with my family and going about, and I would be absolutely fine with that.
Mhm.
Because of ministry, obviously, and this is how everybody's communicating, I stay on ministry. I mean, I stay on social. So I said, you know what? I'm done. This day, I was going to delete my social accounts. I went to my Facebook. I'm going to go delete. Boom, I get a message pop up. I don't know who that is. I don't care who it is. Another message pops up. I go into my messages. I had two messages. One was from a family member. One was from someone I had never met before, just someone on my ministry page. Both were contemplating suicide. And that for me was like, that was God's way of saying, like, first of all, who are you to think you could throw the towel in? You're not that big to throw in the towel. This is what I said you're going to do. You're going to do it. However, you got to figure out how you're going to do it. That's for you to figure out. But I'm telling you, this is what you're going to do. And so when I seen that, and the fact that these two people don't know each other, one of them I don't know at all came to me and say, "Hey, I don't know you. I follow your ministry. This is what I'm thinking. I can't do this." And then for the family member to say, like, "Listen, I'm here with it. I don't want to do it." On the same day that I called myself throwing in the towel, was
Mm-hmm.
proof to me that, okay, he chose you for a reason. And what if I did close out that account? Not saying they would have went through with it, but the fact that they came to me, who knows, you know? And so
Right.
that was the last time that I called myself throwing in the towel, and I just accepted that this is who I was called to be. And however I need to take breaks, and I'll take, like, I just took all last week off.
Right.
Um, and that's how I keep my head afloat. I take breaks when I need to. I know how to log out and just give myself some days, because it is a lot. Wearing the hat as a mom, wearing the hat in nursing, wearing the hat as pastor, now I'm wearing the hat as wife. It's a lot because everybody wants me for something. Everybody needs me for a different thing. Another thing which I found with ministry is that I'm always under a microscope.
Mm.
I'm always being watched. If I put the wrong song to a video, oh my goodness, if my skirt is a little bit too short, oh my gosh. If my girls are not small. Any shirt that I wear, they're gonna look like I'm trying to have a show here. If I
Right.
have sweatshirt, they're there. But oh my gosh, did you see the shirt? Like, I'm always being watched. And so for me, that gets a little bit tiring, because at the end of the day, I am still human. There are
Mm-hmm.
some people that are pastors that say, I don't listen to secular music. Me, I listen to all types of music. I love my Mary J. Blige. I'm
Right.
I have teenagers. I like to hear what they're listening to,
Mm-hmm.
because, and I also I teach youth Bible study. So my audience, a great big part of it is the youth. So if I
Mm-hmm.
can't relate to them, how can I teach them? So I am open to all different types of things. So that's like the biggest thing for me, is having my husband who gives me balance. He's not in ministry. So when I turn off the lives, when I come back from preaching, that's my resting place, where I
Mm-hmm.
know that I don't have to be Pastor T anymore. I can just be Tanequa. We can watch our shows together. And so it's that balance. I think that's very important. Just having that balance, having someone who's going to love you authentically and is not going to judge you based off your titles, giving yourself a break, and also not giving everyone direct access to you.
Oh.
That's something I had to learn coming out of 2023 as well. Is number one, I accept the access that is given to me, like you and I, just being able to pick up my phone, and I know if I needed you, I can call you, I could text
Mm-hmm.
you. That's access that I don't take for granted, because I know that's something not everyone has access to.
Right.
So I had to give myself that same grace. Yes, I have my ministry and I have my personal. So
Mm-hmm.
everyone don't have access to my personal, because you just don't. And then as far as my ministry, there's certain things that I share on my ministry that obviously I wouldn't share, I wouldn't put my personal stuff there. Just having that balance.
Mm-hmm.
So you're given the right access, not too much access. And also, just obviously I have to look at things a lot more closely than somebody else do. So when I make a post, just know everything is thought out about that post, from the
Yeah.
music, from the background to my clothes. And it becomes tiring, that I have to do all of that. But because of the society that we're in, and the fact that, I'm representing the kingdom, I'm representing Jesus. So I do, I take pride in that. So there are certain things that I can't attach with my name.
Mm-hmm.
My name is my brand. There are certain things that, I just can't attach with myself. So I do understand that. And, but like I said, just having that balance, knowing when to take a break, which I've
Mm-hmm.
learned to just turn it off, because it never stops. It never stops. So I have to give myself those moments, and just having the balance. That's how I'm able to do it.
Yeah. That balance is hard. And we talk about balance, and I say I juggle so many things, like you, right? I don't have little ones at home, But that doesn't mean that takes away from that either. Right. I
Right.
think I worry more as adults of what they're doing and,
Oh God.
how
Yes.
they're doing it and where are you? I think I called my oldest daughter, like youngest daughter, hundreds of times. My oldest daughter, I just send her text messages. I
Yeah.
love you. I just know that I love you. And then 3 days later, I love you too, mom. And then,
Right. Right. Yeah.
but at least I get that.
Absolutely.
I take what I can get.
Yes.
Um, but it's still that balance because we want to be all these pieces of us, right?
Mhm.
There's so many pieces of us for being nurse, a healthcare provider, right? Going, being a mom, and being present for
Right.
all those different individuals,
That's right.
all those personalities, because they're different
All those
personalities.
yeah, it's a lot. It's a
It's a it's a lot.
lot.
It's a lot.
It's a
And
lot.
so I commend you for that because I already had the two and I thought I was like losing my mind.
Yeah.
Um, and so, you're dealing with that. And then your husband is a person of itself,
Mhm.
right? That you got to give a whole different part of you to
Yes.
and show up
Yeah.
for.
And he
And
gives
it,
a lot, like, just understanding, being understanding, because it's a lot of times, like I said, it doesn't stop. I have to be the one to turn it off because can I just talk to you for 5 minutes turns into a Zoom call. It turns into 2 hours later. And so he's learning that now, like, because he's like, you're always saying yes. And I'm a newlywed. So now I have to get used to not being so quick to say yes, because I
mhm.
want my posture is always to serve. So when people ask me for something, I'm never looking at the paycheck. I'm always like, okay, what time? Let me see. Let me look at my clock. So now I have to be like, wait, let me talk to my husband. Let me see what's going on, because I will say yes. And then next thing you know, I got a whole lineup and now I'm coming to him and he's like, whoa, where do I fit in? Like, he wasn't going to say anything. So I'm learning to be slower on my yes. I'm learning to communicate that better with my husband before making these decisions. But also just him being supportive too, knowing who I am, knowing that this is very important to me. This is who I am, and so him knowing that he does accept and help with a lot of stuff. And that's one of the reasons why I actually took last week off, because he just flew in from Connecticut. And so I wanted to make sure I wasn't doing meetings. I wasn't, just giving that time,
You're
because
present.
like so that I could be present, because he's the one who gets pushed back more than anything, because I'm like, okay, I know he's here. He knows what I got to do.
That
And
part.
so I have to stop. I got to stop doing that. So I did good last week. You know how hard it was not to post? Do you know how hard?
Yes,
And
I do. Honestly, I do because I everything you said, I can resonate with because here's the thing, that's a constant battle for me.
yes. Wow.
Constant 8 years in. Okay.
Mm,
It's still a battle. And I can see it still be a trigger from my husband. Like he'll give me this look like I'm like,
mm-hmm.
okay,
Yep.
I'm doing too much.
Yep. I
Um,
know that look. I know that look. What are you
you
doing?
know,
Just doing some content. You're still doing
still
content.
doing content.
He's like, does it ever stop? Does it ever stop?
Like, no. And you sit there, it's like he walk out the room, here you with the phone.
Yeah, like real quick, real
And
quick.
then when he comes back in, you throw the phone. I'm here.
Right.
I'm here.
Right. It's
So I
that
get
balance.
it. I I
Yeah.
I I know because
Yeah.
even when people send me text messages, I mean, like you said, I'm there. Someone says, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And it
Right.
turns
That's your first
into
reaction. And then they're
yeah,
looking at us like, yeah, sure. Like,
really,
really?
that was 5 minutes ago. You said you were off the phone, and it's like here it
Yeah.
is, an
Yeah.
hour later, you're still talking.
You're
It's like
still talking.
so I get it, and I'm not even a pastor. It's
Mhm.
just one of those things that
You got a lot going on. You have a lot going on.
I
Yeah.
do. But
Yeah.
the moment it stops, I'm sitting there like, what am I doing now?
Right. What's next?
It's I know people say they have their addictions, and my addiction is not drugs,
Right,
alcohol. I don't smoke, I don't
right,
drink.
right.
This is my addiction.
Yes, yes.
And it's not
That,
because I'm looking at numbers. It's not that, mind you, I don't look at my analytics. People think I'm crazy. They're like, you don't look at your analytics to see who's. I'm like, no,
wow,
I
wow.
don't. I
Yeah,
it's just knowing that it's out there.
yes,
It'll reach who it needs to reach. It'll
absolutely.
touch who it needs to touch. It's
And
there in that space. And I like right now, I'm looking at a monitor here, you're here, behind me is another laptop, and on this corner is another laptop.
wow, wow.
Work, personal work, paycheck work,
Right, exactly. Exactly.
right? So
That's
I get it. And it's hard to find that balance. It really
mhm,
is. And it's a constant tug of war within
mhm,
yourself to show up and be present. And I have to mindfully tell myself, put the phone down, don't answer it,
mhm.
and just let it go.
That's
Like
right.
right? My phone could ring and I will look at it and I will finish talking to my husband and have a conversation or finish doing whatever we were set out to do. And he looks at me, he said, "Who was it?" And I'll tell him.
Mhm.
And he'll say, "Answer it." I'm like, "No."
Right. You don't want me to answer.
I do. Sometimes I had to learn to do that. It, it it wasn't something that automatically happened. I had to forcefully learn and say, "Look, no,
Yep, that's right.
I will call them back."
Yep, that's
Now,
right.
if they call back consecutively, I'm like, "All right,
All right,
what
something's
is
wrong.
it? Something's wrong."
Right,
That's a whole different. All right, they
yeah,
called twice in a row.
right,
Something's happening. I need to figure this out. But if it's just one and done, I'm like, "All right, cool, they're good."
right. Yeah.
You know, so it's definitely a balance, and it's definitely something that we constantly are learning and growing with. Just a, like a tidbit to share with that whole balance. We learn to have meetings. We conduct our house like a business.
Mm,
So
okay.
once a week we have a meeting.
I
It's
love
on our calendar,
yes.
and it's our business meeting where we're talking about the things that we did right that week, the things we did wrong and what went
I
wrong.
love that. You have so many good ideas. I'm gonna have to bring this in. I'm gonna have to bring it here at home.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? And it works. Even down to during these meetings, what are we doing with our meal plans for the week? Because we both work full time. All right. So, all right, where do we need to get from the grocery store to make sure we have everything for breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever? Um, you know, what do you have outstanding? Did I do something to piss you off this week? And how do
Right.
I that you
Wow.
just didn't say about it or it hasn't resolved? Let's talk about it now? Because that's where you have each other's undivided attention.
Okay. I love that. I'm
And it's
in.
we set a timer no longer than an hour,
Okay.
45 minutes to an hour tops.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like we sit there and 5 things you appreciate about me this week. What did I do that ticked you off that you couldn't get over? How are we going into this next week? What do we need to do? What are our big things? Um, I could say I'll send you the cheat sheet. Um,
Yes, I love that.
because it's
And see,
called the
that's why
State
you
of the Union.
win. That's why. Communication. I
Yes.
love and especially even down to the meals, because that's my thing. I get tired of making the same thing. I'm like, what are we gonna eat? What are we gonna eat? What are we gonna eat? Nobody knows, or everyone has a different idea, and it's like, okay, we have to agree on one thing. So I love that. I
Yeah,
think
meal planning is a big thing because
yeah.
especially since we're both vegan and we have to cook everything from
Yes.
scratch for the
I
most
tried it for
part.
a year. I did. I was a vegan for a year and I was a vegetarian for 3. And then when I came here, I don't know what happened. I got a piece of the lamb. That's what happened. I got a piece of the lamb, and I was just like, "Ugh." But definitely it's hard. That year was hard because you don't realize how many products contain meat products, like even down to a Snickers bar. And I was
Hmm.
like, there's pork in Snickers. So yeah, it's definitely tough. So I commend you guys for doing that.
Yeah. So 8 years now. 8 years. Yeah. Our whole marriage, we've been vegan. Yeah. But yeah, it helps with that connection. It forces us to stop
Okay.
and check in. And then even I think one time my husband had this thing that he was just grappling and stressing and about just work home balance. And then he was brushing his teeth, and then he came out the bathroom and he's like, we need to have a meeting, an emergency meeting, and I was like, okay, when? And he's like, 1 o'clock this afternoon sounds good to you? I was like, yeah, that sounds good. And sure enough, 1 o'clock, we got our notebook, paper, sat at the kitchen table. All right, what's going on?
Wow.
What happened that
Yeah.
this is because it wasn't a scheduled meeting. It was just one of those things that we need
And
to have a meeting.
yeah, I love it. And the
Yeah.
fact you guys were able to agree on a time and get it done that day. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
he said if today's not a good day, that's fine. I can wait till tomorrow. I was like, no, we can do it today. one
Yeah.
o'clock. That's fine. Let's do it.
I love that.
You
I love.
know, but it's just those things that we have to learn and communicate with one another. And I share it to share with other people because I share with everyone I get to meet, especially anyone who's married. I'm like, no, guys, you need to do this.
No, it's not like a great idea.
This is like the best thing since sliced bread here.
I love that. I
Especially when you're busy like we are.
yes. Yes.
We check out really easy. We get on that
Mhm.
hamster wheel and we just go.
That's right. Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
moms and we're doers. And
Mhm.
as once we on that wheel, it's
It's
like we
go.
forget.
Yeah. I already after this, I have so much that I'm doing today. So I know what you mean. It's like done. I gotta do this. It's always something.
Right.
Always go. Mm-hmm.
So it's just like it's one of those things that you have to have that stop point.
Yeah.
So I definitely share that with you, and I will definitely
Thank-
send that over.
yes, send it over.
Send it
Send it
over to
over.
you. Because you would think we're a bunch of nerds. It's a
I,
binder we have, and it's on the front of the binder, and it's like we
yes.
pass the baton. It's your turn.
Right.
You start the meeting this week. No, I
Yes,
started it last week. It's your turn. You start the meeting this week.
I am
So
ready.
it's just it sounds like it's work, but when you people don't realize that we work at marriage every
Mm-hmm.
day.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something we wake up and do like having kids. There was no handbook
Oh,
for
no.
having kids. There's no handbook for marriage. Most of us have broken homes that we're coming from and not even a good representation what marriage looks like.
That's true. It's like
And
every day you literally do have to choose your spouse. Like every day you have to choose your marriage. Every day you have to choose to keep going. It's a choice that you have to really take seriously and be committed to.
yes, 'cause
When
I
we
think
got the pastor who married us, he said, you guys are saying yes to everything that you know about each other, but you're saying yes for everything that you don't know. And I was like, wow. And that resonated with me. And it's true. So,
everything that you're going to learn, everything that's going to change.
yep. All these yeses, all this I do. That's what you're saying I do too.
Yes, and I think Viola Davis said it the best when she said, "When I look over at him and I hate him and just don't like him for everything that's in his body, but in the same breath, I can't imagine my life without him."
Mm-hmm.
That's marriage because you're not going to like them every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I
That's right.
tell my husband all the time, "I know you don't like me right now. It's okay.
Okay.
It's okay. Go in the
He
other room.
said, listen, there's going to be days when one of you are going to be checked out. He said, but the other one has to be in. When the one is out, the other one has to be in. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, he gave us some really good jewels, Dale. It was really nice.
Now,
Yeah.
but it really is true, and no one tells you that. In truth, no one
Right.
tells you that.
They
You
think
know,
they make you believe it's always going to be unicorns and butterflies.
it's not.
That's not reality. That's not like.
No,
Mhm.
no. But it's getting through the reality that is key, and maintaining your sense of self and your sense of authenticity while navigating that reality is the key, because we can lose ourselves within our spouses. We can lose ourselves within ourselves.
Yes.
So that's why I think that sitting down is another way to check in and maintain that balance within the relationship and yourself. Make sure
That's
you didn't check out,
that's right.
because women check out quick,
Oh, of course. Yeah.
and it's easy to do. So it's that check in. But yeah, oh my gosh. I don't want to keep you any longer. I mean, we've talked an hour and a half, and oh my God, it could just keep going and going.
Yes.
And we definitely will be checking in again, because I do want to address the other part of who we are as healthcare providers,
Absolutely.
and um, healthcare providers of color.
Yes. Yes.
That
That's
part, because I
right.
actually had students come back to me. One young lady, she just said, "I don't know if I can do this." She's like,
Mm.
"It's not even the patients; it's
Oh,
the
it's
people.
very
It's the
rarely
nurse.
the yeah.
It's the nurses you work with.
That's right.
It's them."
Yeah.
And so, which is why I started my business, Collins Education Resource Management, because I wanted us to be better as healthcare providers to one another.
Yes.
And so I offer a mentorship to nurses,
I love that.
as well,
Okay.
um, because it's hard, and you need someone that you can talk to, and bounce this stuff off of,
Yes.
and create that balance for yourself, navigate as you're growing further in your career,
Yes.
because they think you should just be pigeonholed in this,
Yeah.
bedside position. No, 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 no.
Right. Right.
We're going to stop that right there. We're
Yeah.
not, you know. And that's why I want to try to get my husband to talk more too, because he's a family nurse practitioner,
Oh, wow.
and bringing that male perspective to it as
Absolutely.
well,
Yeah.
is a key part of it, as that I wanted to talk about. And we will talk about. Oh, the one thing I wanted to ask you, just to circle back to your ministry, because we didn't talk about that, and um, that's one of the things I am all about. Diversity, equity, and inclusion in everything that we do. We talked about your ministry and in being our authentic selves. How are you represented within the LGBTQ community, and what's your stance on that?
I honestly, me personally, I feel like we talked about earlier, we all have our sin. Um,
Hmm.
I do feel like I personally would not represent, but I will respect what other people is doing. Like, I'm not the type of person that's going to say what you're doing is wrong or you shouldn't do this. I mean, for
Right.
someone to have friends and family in the LGBTQ community, I know firsthand what that looks like. Me personally, I don't agree with it.
Hmm.
I just don't. I feel like, you are who God made you. I do feel like there is man and woman. I'm going to stand true to that because that is who I am and what I believe to my core. Do I dislike or would I, do anything to that effect as far as what people believe? Absolutely not. I don't want to use the reference as I have family and I have friends. I do, but to me, that's almost like when a racist person say, I have
I
black
have
friends.
black friends.
I Black friends. So I don't want to say I have, family members. I don't want to be that girl because
I
it's
can
too close
appreciate
to
you for
that. You
that.
know what I'm saying? So I don't want to say that. But
You have
I
a healthy
definitely
respect for whoever and whatever and however
full
you show
respect
up.
for
It's
absolutely,
just not what you sign on for.
absolutely,
I
absolutely.
get that. I get
Everyone.
that.
No, I'm no saint. I'm not perfect. I have things within me that other people may see and be like, I don't like that, but I'm never, ever going to turn my nose up to judge, to not love, to not laugh, to not sit side by side, have real conversations, to not
Mhm.
hug, to not love anybody because of their preference. Absolutely not.
Okay. All right. It was one of my questions I had written down, like thoughts. It wasn't even a real thought. It just was a bunch of things to remind myself to circle back. And I looked down, I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't,
Yeah,
because I have listeners from all over, all
right.
walks, and we've had this conversation. I've had other people in the ministry that we talked about this early on, and I had to have them back to think about it. But, anyways, my
Yeah,
mind is always going. But it's just really important for people to know, especially when they're looking for a spiritual guide and a mentor.
right,
And
right.
and that's one of the things you mentioned, that you show up as you are, and that's how you are, and
That's
that's 100% authentic of you to be honest and say, hey, it's not what I co-sign on, but I love you for who you are and how you represent, and I'm here for you. What do you need from me?
amen.
You
That's
know.
exactly that's exactly my stance on it. I'm here
Okay.
ever, no matter what your background look like, no matter what you consider yourself. I still love you. I still will show up for you. I will still pray for you. I will still, like I said, shoulder to shoulder to you, in whatever way I can help. Same thing, the mentorship, advocacy, none of that changes. Like my services is for everyone. Despite how I feel personally, does not change how I stand by people in love.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Okay. And that's good to know. Okay. Because again, we share information, we share resources. That's something that we all do. I hope a lot of us do.
Right.
I'm big on sharing knowledge and education. I don't think it was just meant for me or one person to have. It's meant to disseminate to the masses as best as we can, which is why we both do what we do,
Yes.
to share what we know, what we learned, and grow within ourselves, and share it out so we can all grow
Ex-
together. Um, so yeah, so well, thank you for that, answering that question, because I would have been mad at myself.
No one has ever asked me that question. So you are the
No.
first one. So thank you. Yes.
Oh no, you know what? Because I am that person. I am, that diverse individual. And like I said, I want to make sure that every facet of not just who I am, but the people that listen to the shows and are out in our communities are well represented and loved by every room they walk into.
That's right. That's right.
And being healthcare workers, I don't know where some of these nurses get this notion that you can pick and choose who you take care of and how you take care of these people. um,
Yeah.
no,
Mhm. That
no,
doesn't work like that
it doesn't. And I feel it shouldn't work that way in
outside.
religion as well, and on the outside as well. So I am always quick to ask that question, especially to those in who are devout Christians and follow the word of God, because sometimes they're the first ones to throw the first stone.
Yeah. Oh, we know that. We know that. Unfortunately, that is
And
true. That is
right,
true.
so creating safe space for everybody,
Safe space.
um, safe
Definitely.
space for all of us. And
Oh,
Who
yeah.
who would think in this day and age, in the 21st century, we have to think of a
That's
safe
exactly
space for those of us in the Black and Brown community? But we need
right.
safe spaces.
You do. We do. Absolutely.
So everybody know we're a safe space.
That's
We're
right.
putting it out there. We're a safe
Right.
space.
It is all love. It's all love.
It's all love. You come as you are, and that's even if you are living on the streets, come as you are, because we have to take care of each other because
We
no one
do.
else is going to do it.
That's right.
So, and we're here for that. So I really, really thank you for
Yeah.
coming on to my show. I thank you for being my sister, my friend. Oh my gosh, so cute.
Yes. Thank you so much again for having me. I'm
Yes.
more than honored to be here. I'm happy that we had this conversation. I pray that it is a blessing to someone
It
um,
will.
to hear this, real conversation with real people who are representing these areas. It's not like we just picked up a book and what are we going to talk about? This is real life, real experiences. And so for that alone, I hope that it's able to resonate with someone.
Yes, yes. And you know what? I it will. And as
Mhm.
I told you, I don't look at analytics because it'll drive you crazy if you look
Oh,
at the analytics. Oh my gosh. But
yes.
um I feel like it will carry its weight. And if it's just one, two, it's meant for those people who needed it. And um yes, I love it. And before I let you go, I want to also ask, make sure that you join the Black Nurses Association.
Oh,
Hey,
yes.
ma'am.
Oh, yes. I will.
Okay.
Okay. I
All
will.
right. Our next meeting, I think, is the fourth week in fourth Saturday in April. So whatever
Okay.
that Saturday is,
Okay.
um, in the morning, you can either go to the building or via Zoom. I'm in Tucson, so I'm zooming in
Right.
anytime I'm zooming in. Um, but yes, please become a member. We definitely can use you in our numbers. And here I am speaking like I have to, on all fairness, I have to renew my membership. I go to the meeting, I just kind
Right.
of
Right.
just got to renew my membership.
Yeah.
But we need more of us, and I don't just mean us of color. I
Mhm.
mean us of nurses that are in the trenches, because honestly I want to relieve some of our older nurses that are been doing it so long in the Black Nurses Association. God love them, and I know they're tired, but and I being out in Tucson is hard for me because they have so many events that's going on. It's like, oh, I got to pick and choose which ones
Right.
I go to because I have to drive.
Yes. Yes. I can. And
But I tried, so because they are older, and
yeah,
and in all fairness, I do want to do my due diligence, so I do try as much as I can. So if I can get more of us going in there,
absolutely.
increasing our numbers and showing up, um, let's do it.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
for anyone who's listening, no, you don't have to be a nurse of color to join the Black Nurses Association or any other nursing association.
Yeah.
Um, so let me just put that out there, because that's just not it. Um, but whoever wants to join, please, we definitely would love to have you be one of us and be a part of the volunteers and spreading the word in the community. So, and then so definitely. Um, but yes, so do at least go on the website and put your name in the on the
Okay.
list
I will for sure. I will.
so that you can get some lovely information, because they have job postings and everything that goes through there as well. So and we also offer the mentorship as well through there, and
Awesome.
scholarships as you're increasing your knowledge and things,
Okay.
so you can get a couple of those scholarships as
I love.
members as well. So my
Amazing.
husband and I have gotten it a couple of times because no one else applied.
Right.
But it's helpful because it help pays for books or whatever the case may be. So definitely get your name out there and also spread the word amongst your colleagues as well.
Okay.
I'm going to say the ones you like.
Yeah. The good ones. The good ones.
Good ones.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that was really bad, but it's true. We want good-hearted people who
Mhm.
are out to take care of the community and help the community as we are doing now. Um, because there's enough backbiting and everything else that's going outside the community. We don't need to continue that.
Right.
So definitely, in all fairness, if you're not true to the cause, don't be about the pipe. Don't
Hmm.
show up.
Hmm. That's
Just
right.
don't show up. But yes, so thank you again. Like I said, I can continue to have conversation because
It's good.
it's good. But I did want to say that too before I forgot,
Okay.
to join the Black Nurses Association because we do need more um, of us in our numbers
Okay.
to more footwork in there. Um, and I think, yeah, and you'll like it. I think our scholarship tea is coming up in September too,
Okay.
which is a really nice time as well. So yeah, join us. Join
I
us.
will for sure.
I'll be there via Zoom, but I'll be
Okay.
there. um, but yeah, so we will definitely continue our conversation
Okay.
thereafter. But I do want to thank you again for taking the time out and joining us. I know you have a lot going on in your day. You already know I got a lot going on in mine.
Yes.
And then some. But yes, I look forward to our next conversation.
Yes.
We definitely
You.
have to get that on the books for our next conversation. And yeah, and just keep doing what you're doing. I
Thank
mean,
you so
you're
much. You as well.
such, thank you. And I am again so blessed and honored to have you in my
Thank
ranks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Same for me too. Thank you for having me. Thank you for everyone who will see this. You guys are amazing. You can connect with me. I know you have it up there, but you can connect with me on all socials at Perfectly Chosen Ministries. The site is perfectlychosenministries.com. On Thursdays, I have Youthful Thursdays. It's a Bible study for the youth. 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and you just adjust it according to where you live. But that's if you go to Perfectly Chosen Ministries Instagram, there's a link in the bio where you can fill out the information for your youth, and it's all Zoom. So it doesn't matter where you live, you can partake. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, fantastic. So, everyone, do your due diligence and just reach out, even if it's to say hi, I
Yeah,
saw you, whatever. I know Pastor T would love to hear from you.
absolutely.
Um, and of course, you could drop where you heard it too. That never
Please don't forget
hurts,
that part.
right? Just don't forget that you heard her on the
Yes,
Soulful Eclectic, okay? And it definitely will not be the last time that you will definitely hear from her. So, for all of you, definitely check us out on all the podcast screaming. Good Lord, streaming networks. And that could be on Google Play or your, what is that, Apple, whichever
awesome.
one. I stream on all of them, Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it. And for those of you who want to catch us live on TV, we are WUBI Ubiquity TV on Roku.
Yeah.
Okay, so download the app if you have not done so yet. What have you been waiting for? So download the app. Watch us on Friday night, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Roku TV, or you can listen to us on the radio, WUBI Ubiquity Radio, and also on your podcast streaming networks. So thank you all, and I look forward to hearing your feedback on today's episode. Take care of yourself and each other.